This week, the Dine Away team is in West Yorkshire to visit the town of Huddersfield. It has a population of about 125,000 and lies just off the M62, 11 miles south of Bradford. The main part of the town is in the valley of the River Colne, with the residential areas spread up the hillsides. Wool has been spun and woven in Huddersfield for centuries, and although many of the textile mills have now closed, a few still remain specialising in high-quality goods. But I suppose Huddersfield is now probably best known for its famous choral society and for its tremendous dedication to music and the arts. So who better to start with than the General Secretary of the Huddersfield Choral Society, Jim Stafford. You look very young to be a General Secretary of such a marvellous thing. I mean, how long have you been with them?
I've been a member of the Society for 13 years now. But General Secretary for only a matter of months. Prior to that, I was Choir Secretary.
150 last year, is that right?
We had our 150th birthday on the 7th of June.
Exactly how many members of the choir are there?
We have approximately 220 singing members, and we normally expect to get almost 200 in each concert.
How is that composed then, a choir of that size? What's the sort of divisions?
Well, Sir Malcolm Sargent, one of our previous conductors and probably the most famous, felt that a ratio of 5-3-2-3, soprano, contralto, tenor and bass, was the ideal.
For the photographs I've seen, you all look very smart. The men in dinner jackets.
Yes, the men wear the standard dinner jacket, which most singers seem to wear. The ladies, a dress which has been newly designed, and we've had it for about 12 months, and it's in fuchsia pink.
Right, now have you got a bass? I mean, where do you rehearse and where do you normally perform here?
Our rehearsals all take place in a local Methodist mission, and we have 4 regular concerts in Huddersfield each year, which are in the town hall.
Which is your special occasion? Do you have one special occasion?
I think most members would agree that Messiah is our very special one. We perform Messiah twice each year, once for the subscribers who buy season tickets, and once for the general public.
Now, I said there's this tremendous tradition for the arts and everything. I've just got a list here in front of me of the music. There's the Operatic Society, the Glee and Madrigal, the Methodist Choir, the Music Society, the Gilbert and Sullivan Society, there's you, there's a theatre club, there's the Huddersfield Thespians. I mean, what is all this tradition?
Huddersfield and its local area seems surrounded in musical tradition, and it seems to develop in the schools. Most schools seem to have a brass band within them and various choirs and orchestras. Why it happens that a particular area is so musical, I have no idea.
Is there a youth choir too now?
We found in the past the members of Huddersfield Choral Society were drawn from the Methodist churches and the non-conformist churches in the area, and their strength in the area seems to be diminishing in some ways, and several of our members were worried that it perhaps was going to affect the choir, and so recently we formed a youth choir. And we now have 107 voices in the youth choir.
This is your sort of junior 11 you'll draw on for when they grow older, I suppose.
Membership of the youth choir isn't necessarily going to get automatic membership of the Huddersfield Choral Society, but we hope to be able to train them to love music as much as the choir members do.
So that means you've got a qualification. I can't suddenly join. What do I have to do? Do I have a test?
Oh yes, we have very, very strict qualifications. The auditions are sometimes frightening. We have a team of, or a committee as we call them, who actually listen to people auditioning.
What do you make the poor candidate sing?
The candidate has 3 things to do. His first is to sing a scale so we can identify the range. The second is to sing a prepared piece. And the third is sight reading. I think one of the worst things about it is that there are 14 people listening. It's terrifying for them.
Must be. What about rehearsal? How many times a week?
We rehearse only once a week, and we have a reasonably long summer break. We finish usually in June until the beginning of September.
Do you take the rehearsals? Are you the chap in charge there?
We have a chorus master, Brian Kay, who was in the King's Singers and has been a BBC presenter. And Brian comes up from his home in the Cotswolds every week.
You mentioned the BBC just now, and I know that they've selected you for the Royal Variety performance.
Yes, we were thrilled by that. We performed in London during our 150th season, and following that, we were invited to sing in the Royal Variety performance.
And if anyone wants to see you, they'll be able to see you on Saturday of this week, which will be the 29th. 29th. And how will you get all your 200 people on the stage?
Well, we understand from the producers of the programme that we won't actually appear on the stage. We will be singing in the foyer on the staircase.
And look out for those fuchsia pink dresses.
Of course.
Jim, thanks so much. A piece of music. It must be from the Choral Society.
Yes, I think I must choose one of the Choral Society's pieces, and really I think it's from the Hymns album.
And now to find out something about Huddersfield, we've come to see George Redmonds. He's a local lecturer, historian, writes for the Examiner every now and again here, the local paper. George, first of all, before we talk about the textile side, how old is Huddersfield? Is it very, very ancient?
Well, the founding of Huddersfield goes back to the 8th century, I imagine, but Huddersfield, in the way that we know it, probably not much older than, say, the 17th century, when it got its market and its real growth began.
Was it based on textiles, its prosperity?
Certainly its growth from 1670 onwards was based on textiles, yes, although it had other interesting industrial developments. There was an iron industry here in the 16th century, and coal mining was very prominent right through the 19th century. From the 1500s, when the first important fulling mills were built on the River Colne, there's been enormous energy put into textiles.
And when did it peak?
Well, I would have thought that there were booms and slumps throughout the history of the textile period, but certainly in the 19th century large numbers of people were employed, and into this century with both wars, of course. Those stimulated the trade enormously.
And was I right in saying a great many of them are now closed?
Well, a lot are closing. That doesn't mean to say that there is less activity at certain levels, but yes, a lot of the big mills are closing, the big employers are.
So what's taken their place?
Well, of course, we have a lot of unemployment here, but there are other industries. We have a very large ICI plant in Huddersfield. There are engineering places, Broadbent's still going.
And what about the little businesses?
A lot of the people who worked in textiles have hived themselves off and created small industries, if you like, small firms.
Now, Huddersfield itself, the buildings don't look very old.
It's true, really, that the town is made up of buildings that date from not much earlier than 1850. One or two date back to the late 1700s, but that is the growth of the town. Huddersfield was literally one street until 1800.
I mean, we've met here in the George Hotel in the lovely George Square. I mean, is this the main part of the town now, would you say?
This was a planned part of the town. This was a deliberate policy to create an area away from the single street. The station, which is, as you probably agree, an imposing station.
I mean, all these pillars and things, most imposing.
Yes, this is a listed building. and the whole square was created with the idea of imposing itself on the visitor.
So who was responsible for all this development?
Really, Huddersfield had a landlord who owned most of the freehold in the town, so to that extent it is the responsibility of the Ramsden family.
Ramsden's, yes.
You'll have noticed Ramsden Street and John William Street and so on. These all relate to the Ramsdens. They gave the town its market charter, they built the cloth hall, they built the canal into the town. So to that extent the town is dependent on their patronage, if you like.
I saw a headline which said something like the town that bought itself when describing Huddersfield. What does that mean?
It is literally true. There's an enormously long and complicated story here, but the short version of it is that just after the First World War, when the Ramsdens needed cash, the idea of selling to the corporation was raised. The problem was to find a buyer who could be the intermediary, who would have sufficient cash. And in the end, they found a man called Copley, who was formerly a barber, who had emigrated, I think, to Australia, who purchased the town on the behalf of the corporation and then sold it.
He must have done a lot of haircuts to get that
Well,
money.
I think that he was other things besides a barber in Australia, yeah.
So was it illegal then, or something for the town to buy through an individual?
I think there had to be an interim period until the necessary act was passed that would allow them to purchase the town, yes.
And there's some story about how it was all done.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff. There's a captain, I think Melville was his name, who was some sort of intermediary. And the lovely story of the payment itself made by a gentleman who went down to London with the cash wrapped around him and had to sit through a session at the opera wondering if he was going to be mugged.
With thousands of pounds around his tummy.
Probably over $1 million, I think, yes.
It seems to be a great place for characters. Tell us one or two of the famous people who've been here.
I suppose everybody knows of the obvious names, Harold Wilson, James Mason, and so on. But if you're talking of famous people, there are those who've made their name away from Huddersfield. I always think of the founders of Vancouver were Huddersfield men. The father of Adelaide was a Huddersfield man. The old image, you know, of the self-made man is a story of energy, really. And my investigation into Huddersfield communities abroad, like the ones who went to Russia or
Russia?
America. Yes, indeed. They made a settlement on the banks of the Neva and built textile mills there and survived there until the revolution. And lots of Huddersfield people survived to speak Russian. In fact, two old ladies that we interviewed recently in their 80s were still Russian speakers.
George, thank you very much for telling us about Huddersfield. We want a piece of music. Now, what are you going to choose?
Well, I'm going to choose the Colne Valley male voice choir singing Love Could I Only Tell Thee.
We don't come across so many inventors in down your way, but here in Huddersfield we've certainly found one. His name is Wilf Lunn, or to give him his full name, it is Wilfrid Makepeace Lunn. And I'm in his workshop. I could say it looks as if it's full of junk, but that would insult him. There are a lot of extraordinary inventions. I'm just wondering how you got into this invention business. I mean, what were you to start with, Wilf?
Well, originally I was a textile designer, but I set up selling little bits of antiques and things. And in my shop I had an Edwardian bell called a pinger.
A pinger?
A pinger, which is different from a dinger. Because a dinger you bang, a pinger you flick.
Yeah.
And James Mason came to Huddersfield, saw this in the shop, and he bought the thing from me. And through that, he introduced me to an agent, and through the agent, I started building machines.
And, of course, got onto television in Vision
right,
On
yeah.
with Tony Hart.
That's right, yeah.
You appeared in there for a long time,
That's right, yeah.
doing all sorts of things.
Yes, building machines, square egg machines, doorbell machines, anything.
Do it take a long time to think of all these things, or does someone ask you, can you make one?
Usually they're built to commission, but sometimes, occasionally I build things just for fun, you know.
Let's look up there. First of all, there's rather a nice Christmas cake, 3 tiers, and
Yeah.
nice bit of wrapping around it. What's that do?
Well, that, in actual fact, that's for a royal birthday, because as you can see, it's shaped like a pink castle.
Mm-hmm.
And the little soldier comes round and he lights each cannon, and it fires "Happy Birthday to you."
Actually, it gets very popular with the kiddies, isn't it?
No, it's not very popular with kiddies at all. No, it frightens them to death.
Now, what about this lady, sort of from her navel upwards, is a lady on the
that's
shelf?
because the rest of us over the other side of the room. She, in actual fact, is a kissing device. It's for judging how passionate people can kiss. And as you kiss her, if you're very passionate, the hair raises and she vibrates, and then the top of her head explodes, filling the room full of confetti.
That's if you give her a very good kiss.
That's if you give her a very good kiss, yes.
Let's go to your table where you've got various things. You've got a lady's shoe with a chain hanging out, rather like you have at the back of a car sometimes, a chain trailing on the ground.
Well, it's a similar idea. You see, since the advent of nylon stockings, ladies have been in considerable danger from the nylon stockings rubbing together. This creates static electricity, which can set fire to their underwear, and this little chain sort of earths the electricity away, so they're perfectly safe.
Have you ever met a lady whose underwear caught fire?
Well, no, because most of them wear these.
You've got a bit of dog meat there. It appears to have some feet underneath it.
Well, this is dog meat for fat dogs, particularly Labradors, you see. And you wind it up, and you put it on the floor, and it runs across the floor like that. And the dog's got to chase it, thus slimming the dog down.
I think that's good. Now, alongside are 2 very stiff-looking sleeves of a men's coat with the cuff sticking out. Well, what use are those?
Well, those have 2 functions. As you see, they're very stiff, so if you've got them strapped onto you, you can't bend your arms, you see. So they can be used as diet sleeves, or if you've got measles, they stop you from scratching yourself.
You sell quite a few of those?
No, never caught on those at all.
Look, let's come over to the middle of the room, because you've got your masterpiece here. It's an amazing contraption. It's about 10 feet high. At the top there's the cloud.
Yes.
And then there's the sun. And then there are a whole lot of wheels which go round, joined by strings. And at the bottom there's a big bowl of water with some fish in, and what looks like a submarine with paddle wheels.
Yes.
What is this all meant to do? Because underneath you say...
Well, I'll switch it on so you can see. Right. Well, you see, it's a heron scarer and lark lure.
A heron scarer and lark lure, right?
Well, the lark lure part of it, you see, is that the lark flies along and it wonders to itself, what's that cloud and sun doing down there? So it flies down.
Right.
Also, when the thing works, as you can see, mirrored balls spin round. This flashes in the sun. This also attracts the lark. So you can have this in your garden and lots of larks flying around. Also, it frightens away herons, which can attack your fish. Right?
Yeah.
The submarine helps to frighten the herons away, and the faces going up and down in the water, they're very effective at frightening herons as well, but they don't frighten the larks. The other thing that's absolutely foolproof with this is that if a heron, totally ignores all these things going on, all the fish are in actual fact stuffed.
Well, there's water pouring out the cloud, it's going through the sun, coming out of his mouth, it's going down into a sort of cone-like thing.
The cone goes down,
and that pulls the wheels
turns the
round.
wheels round, which flash, empties at the bottom, and then the whole thing repeats itself.
And pumps the water up again. I'm not quite sure what the submarine's doing.
Well, every so often, the submarine turns in the water, and inside it, when I finish, there'll be little faces that appear. Right?
How long have you been working on this?
About 10 hours a day for about 5 weeks, this one.
And was it ordered as it was, or did you invent it, or was it for somebody?
It's for Newcastle breweries. I designed the thing, and I've now got to make it work. I never believed they'd buy the thing.
Where are they going to put it?
In a pub.
But there are not many larks to lure in a pub, are
No, but it has another thing, which it sort of affects you. Have you noticed? It makes you want to go to the loo. So the more often you go to the loo, obviously, the more beer you buy.
It's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? And you'll finish that soon, will you? All the wheels will go round.
Well, I should imagine in a few days' time it'll all be working, yeah. Perfect. It's nearly there now. There's just the rainbow to go on the top.
Wilfred Makepeace Lunn, inventor extraordinary. Marvellous to have met you. I don't suppose there are many people like you, are there?
No, not in Huddersfield, no.
I don't think anywhere.
Yeah.
Are you fond of music? I mean, you
Yes, yes.
choose a nice piece for us?
I'd like You Can Call Me Al, I think that's the name, by Paul Simon.
Any reason for that?
I like the video.
A man walks down the street, he says, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is so hard. I need a photo opportunity. I want a shot at redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. Bone digger, dogs in the moonlight. Far away, my well-lit door. Mr. Beer Melly, get these mutts away from me, you know. I don't find this stuff amusing anymore. If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long-lost pal. I can call you Betty, and Betty, when you call me, you can call me Al. A man walks down the street, he says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention, and oh, my nights are so long. Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model now that my role model is gone? He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl. All along, there were incidents and accidents. There were hints and allegations. If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long-lost pal. I can call you Betty, and Betty, when you call me, you can call me out, call me out.
Well, we've heard how big has become small in Huddersfield, so we've come to find out a recent example. We've come up one of the many steep hills in Huddersfield. We've come to Newtham Mills and to a section of it called Regent of Huddersfield, and they make rosettes. And outside there's a shed with printing machines there and rosettes all over the place and coloured ribbons. And with me is Jenny Barringer, who is Terry Crowther, I think, are partners in this. And how long have you actually had this firm yourself?
Terry and I have been doing this together now for 6 years.
6 years, right. Well, what about this building? Because you're a section of it, I said. What other sort of businesses are here now?
Quite a lot of different ones, actually, including a dye manufacturer, a pattern maker, joiner, electrical company, a caravet manufacturer, a bedroom furniture company, a camera firm,
So
engineers.
So all these have been absorbed in this one old mill, which used to make what?
They used to make worsted cloth.
Rosettes. I mean, are they very popular, rosettes?
Well, rosettes are very, very popular and becoming increasingly so. The Regent was originated about 20 to 25 years ago in the rosette market, and it's just steadily grown and grown.
What sort of people do you make it for? Right, dogs and horses? What other sort of things?
We make them for political parties. We do them for greyhound stadiums. We send a lot abroad. We send them to Australia. We do the Royal Melbourne Show. We've even sent them to Papua New Guinea. They go to Sweden, France, Germany, Holland.
Now, you've got some very exotic colours. First of all, are you bespoke? Do I order my colour, or
Yes.
do you make them and suggest them to people?
Yes, they are a bespoke item, if you like to put it that way, although we do get people who order and they say of your choice. So we usually leave it to the person who's sewing the rosette up to put the colours together there.
Yes. There are one or two which are round. There's some rather oval shaped. Is there any traditional shape?
The round is the most traditional, but the oval, or the cameo as we call it, is also quite popular.
In the background, we hear a machine there, and that is satin going through a machine and coming out with a lot of frills or pleats, I think you would call them.
Yes.
So can you tell us the process? First of all, the satin. Where do you get this from?
That comes from a company in Staffordshire.
Well, how do you make it up from there? We've seen it go through the machine, so how is the actual rosette made up?
We stamp out or punch out cardboard round, depending on the size of the rosette, because we have several sizes from 1 tier right up to 5 tier.
It's not like the back of a disc you put in your windscreen of a motor
That's right,
license,
like a
isn't
tax
it?
disc,
Yeah.
yes, that's correct,
Right.
only it's in thin card. That goes out to a sewer, and she will sew the ribbon onto the card, as again, depending on how many tiers that it wants to be, sews the tails on. She also sticks on a back and a centre, which is supplied and sent out to her from the factory here, and it comes back in actually as a complete item.
How many do turn out a year? Any idea?
I would say at least 1 million rosettes a year.
And, all right, we've seen the ones you stick on to people, but have you ever made any really big ones? Well, do you know the biggest one you've made?
Yes, we have indeed. We once made one that was about 6 foot in diameter, and that was made for an American building company who wanted to open a building in this country, and the flag of America was put in the centre of that. The backing was actually hardboard.
Now, you've started a small business. Has it been tough going?
It was very tough going originally. Very, very tough, but well worth it.
And we saw about, what, half a dozen people working out there?
That's right.
And is that your total workforce?
It is within the factory. We employ about 12 ladies who actually work from home for us.
And that works well?
It works very well indeed, because if we're not busy, therefore we're not employing people within the factory and paying them to stand around a lot of the time. Or then again, if we are busy, these ladies at home are so good they will work all hours to fulfill an order, which isn't possible within a factory.
Have you got any one special busy period? Is Christmas a busy period for you, or not necessarily, I suppose?
Not particularly Christmas, although sometimes things drop in, as we call it. But our main busy period is round about the end of March through to the end of September.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Good luck to you and Terry. It's nice to see a small business flourishing like this. Now, we want a piece of music. What sort of thing are you going to choose?
Well, we thought the most appropriate piece of music we could choose is a piece called Musical Joke, the signature theme to the Horse of the Year show.
One of the great days in Huddersfield every year now is the Kite Day, and this has only been going on recently, so we'll find out from Graham Marsden, who I understood was responsible for starting it up. He's a freelance community worker. We're in his workshop, table littered with banners and kites of all shapes and sizes. Graham, the Kite Day, I mean, how did you get the idea?
I was making a banner at the West Indian Association in Huddersfield. I've always been interested in kites. I met people there who were interested in kites and found out that there's a great tradition of kite flying in the West Indies. And we had an idea, it was a notion, let's have a Kite Day in Huddersfield, and that's how it started.
So tell us what happens on Kite Day and when it is, and where.
It's on Castle Hill. It's usually within the first couple of weeks of July, and it happens on a Sunday afternoon. Preceding it, we make kites in schools or youth clubs or with adult workshops. And this year we were specialising in making giant kites and also Chilean fighter kites. And on the day, people come along with their kites of literally all shapes and sizes, all ages. And as well as the kite flying, the other element of Kite Day, which I think is very important, is that we have a lot of entertainment, suitable outdoor entertainment. So there are little pockets. You might come across the Morris dancers from up the valley, or a brass band, the local West Indian steel band, outdoor theatre, a lot of people busking, face painting. Wherever you go, you come across little pockets of entertainment. And on top of all that mixture are the real stars of the shows, who are all the people who've come to fly their kites and to entertain everybody else.
All the people. What sort of numbers are we talking about in kites and people who just come to watch?
Last year, throughout the afternoon and early evening, we must have had about 3,000 people. At any one time, I think the maximum kites that we had in the air was probably 200 to 300, and we probably had about 600 kites on site altogether during the event.
Well, let's talk about different kites. I mean, you've got a very simple one here. What is the basis of a kite? This one is what, octagonal?
This is a West Indian kite. It's based on the traditional West Indian called Bermudan three-stick. Starts with 3 sticks.
And made of paper.
Yes. I learned this kite making from a West Indian versal. It's made from split cane, split bamboo, and the cane is just split with a knife. That's the most dangerous part of the exercise. The sections are then finely shaved, balanced. It's very important to have the kite symmetrical. And then traditionally in the West Indies, they're covered with paper. They fly very well because you've got lightness, you've got strength against the wind, and little refinements on the top here. These little pieces of paper are called singers or buzzers. And when they vibrate in the wind, they give a beautiful sort of sound.
And they have a tail always, do they?
The West Indians always have a tail, a great long tail, about 6 times the length of the kite.
And is the paper glued to the bamboo
Yes,
sticks?
just ordinary paper glue. Well, you'd imagine a surprisingly frail form of construction, but it works well.
Are they the great people of the West Indies, or who are the great kite people in the world?
I think it started with the Chinese, that's generally acknowledged. Still doing great kite flying, the Chinese, the Japanese, very, very good, the Indians, and the Chileans.
The Chileans, yes. Well, I was going to ask you what this thing down here is, because this is a square one,
Yes.
made of paper.
Yeah, it looks very simple, doesn't it? It's just 2 sticks, 1 straight stick on the diagonal of this paper square, and 1 curved stick running across it. And this is a Chilean fighter kite.
A fighter kite? I mean, a nasty fighting, you mean?
Well, that's not particularly nasty. I thought it was nasty when I first heard about it. We've got some Chilean friends who are refugees living in Sheffield, and accidentally, talking about kites, found out that in Chile kite flying is a big tradition. But unusually, the only sort of kite that they have is this sort of kite. For 3 months of the year, everybody flies kites because the winds are just right. And the idea is that the flying line is coated in powdered glass, just light bulbs, with glue, and it's run along the line. And when you go out and fly your kite, the object is to try and bring your line down across somebody else's, cutting it, and their kite flies off, whilst avoiding the same thing happening to you. It doesn't go that high because the whole of the line is coated with glass, but it goes very fast, and it's flown off one line, so it is highly skilled. There's no tail, very difficult to do, but with expertise, just by turning the wrist, these people can make it go exactly where they want in the sky. It's quite extraordinary to watch.
You don't want one of these your kite day. You go along and cut everybody.
Well, we had a demonstration by the Chileans last kite day, but we made sure that everybody brought their kites down before they did their demonstration.
Just to go back to your origins again, so to speak, you've got hung up here lots of banners. There's one which says Dayton getting together, and a lot of sort of quilt work, it looks like, on it.
Yes, it's all appliqued work. The main part of my community arts work is banner making, and the purposes behind it is that we believe in community arts that everybody has a story to tell or a message or something to get across. We help them to do it and create very good art. So our art is about celebrating, about putting across ideas, writing a book, affecting your environment and your own lives. This one is a celebration of things that people do together on the estate. And you see at the bottom of the banner, it's a group of people, and it celebrates the different ethnic makeup of that part of Huddersfield. This is a little fabric piece, which is about the Kite Day, and this was made by one of our workers, Sarah, and that's her sort of fabric interpretation, a banner interpretation of Kite Day.
Yes, someone holding the thing along with a string.
Yes,
with
that's
kite at the
right.
end.
Yeah.
And the monument at the top, is that?
Yes,
or?
that's the monument to Queen Victoria's Jubilee, which the council put up last century.
Right. Well, Castle Hill, July the 12th, is there. Should be an exciting place, and not too many people with Chilean fighter kites.
No, if they are, they'll be, yeah, they won't be in the way, yeah.
Graham, thanks so much. A piece of music now.
Well, I'd like to have Flight of the Condor by a Chilean group who are called Inti Limane, and really part of it is to say thanks to Chilean friends, Pedro Fuentes and others, who have given me so much pleasure, and I think the music captures that tremendous beauty and quality of kite flying.
And now to end our programme from Huddersfield, we've come to see one of the town's most famous sons, Derek Ibbotson, one of the great runners in Great Britain. And he's standing alongside me, looking fighting fit. I mean, he was still running around.
A little bit of running, but mainly squash, Brian. But over the last year, I've lost about a stone in weight and made a definite effort to try and get a bit fitter.
You're a very modest chap. I know you held the world record for the mile. Just remind us when you first beat the 4 minutes. I know Bannister did it first.
Yes, he did it in 1954, and then I beat it in 1956 at White City. It was a final trial for the Olympic team for Melbourne, and I ran 3:59.4 that equalled Roger's record. Then in 1957, I ran at the London Evening News meeting, London-New York match, and ran 3:57.2, which was a new world record.
Well, that's lasted quite a long time, huh?
It lasted 10 years as a British record, but only a year as a world record because the great Herb Elliott came along in 58 and smashed it in Dublin. So
did you actually race against him?
I ran against Herb a few times, but 58 was one of my bad years. I had a problem. I'd come out with a carbuncle at the back of my neck, and it had poisoned my system, and I lost about 3 months' training. So while I ran against Herb, I was never really that fit, but I did have the great pleasure to run the first 4-minute mile in 1958 in a race that actually Herb Elliott won.
That's a trap question, isn't it? A quiz
Yes,
question.
it is. It's the English language, as always, has different connotations and things, but he's the first 4-minute miler. I am, because I ran it exactly 4 minutes. Bannister was the first sub-4-minute miler because he ran it in under 4 minutes, and that is the difference.
Oh, did you always run the mile, or did you run longer distance?
No, I began as a cross-country runner. I was known as a cross-country runner by Harold Abrams and all the scribes. And then I went 5,000 metres, and I got a bronze medal in Melbourne at 5,000 metres. But then I kept getting invitations for the mile, obviously after having won the final trial in 56. So I turned in 57 to the mile and got the world record. It was more glamour then, of course, and that's why I did it.
How did you start as a runner? I mean, was there a good athletics club here in Huddersfield?
Yes, the athletics club, it was quite a good one, and we were quite strong, but it was mainly my father. I mean, I, as a typical Yorkshireman, I fancied myself as playing for Yorkshire cricket and football for Huddersfield Town. They were both very, very good teams. Both struggling a bit at the moment, though. But I wanted to be a footballer cricketer. My brother, Stuart, was better than me at both, and he played for Huddersfield Town boys at football and for Huddersfield boys at cricket. And my father came to watch me, and typical blunt Yorkshireman, he said, "Well, son, that's got plenty of energy, but they haven't got much idea." He said, "I'd stick to running if I were you," and of course, that was it then.
What good advice.
Yeah.
And of course, do you run up and down these hills to train?
Well, this was the main training, Brian. I mean, the hills around Huddersfield are quite severe, being on the edge of the Pennines, and of course, a lot of our training sessions were up the hills of Huddersfield, and of course it made all the difference to my stamina, which obviously carried me in good stead when I got a bit older.
And you did cross-country work, did you?
Yes, a lot of cross-country work, which first started when Stand-Up Fireworks, which is a local company, used to, during the war, send up Vari lights to test them out for, obviously, lifeboats and things like that, and they were attached to a big parachute, which had cotton or nylon or rayon, and we used to chase these because we could sell the cotton or the nylon for people to make pillow slips and things like that and make some money. So we chased these for miles and miles and miles.
Well, now, look, the difference these days, I remember when Roger Bannister broke the 4 minutes, I mean, he collapsed. Nowadays, they just wave the crowd and run around. And the difference in times now, everybody beats 4 minutes, so what is the difference?
Well, people say, well, we were obviously not quite as good as they were, but this is not factually true. I mean, I've spoken to Seb Coe at length about this, and of course, the tracks have made a vast amount of difference. We were running on dusty cinder tracks that had loose potholes in and things like that, and Seb reckons a 1.5 seconds per lap is about right for the adjustment for a tartan track. So that's 6 seconds. And of course, the other big thing is the modern technology of manufacturing sports shoes. That the spikes that they have nowadays are twice as light as they were in my day. But the biggest factor of all is that, I mean, I could finish work at 1 o'clock here, catch a train down to London. At 7 o'clock at night, I'd be running at White City for Great Britain. Now, they're full-time athletes now, and this makes a lot of difference.
Why have we got this tradition of great middle-distance running in Great Britain?
I think mainly because of the climate. The cold weather makes it easier for you to run hard and run long distances without, being too hot, and you can go out any time of the day. And I think the cross-country background, particularly in Great Britain, has made a lot of difference to our middle-distance runners. And I think having good middle-distance background tends to force a lot of people into middle-distance running as well.
If we had to pick one great runner, who would you pick as the greatest, certainly middle distance?
I would say something like Zatopek, but I mean, obviously in the mile, something like Herb Elliott was absolutely tremendous. He retired unbeaten at 22.
Derek, nice to see you again. Now, we want a piece of music to end our programme. What's it going to be?
Well, it's mine and my wife's favourite from our courting days because she lived in Sutton Coldfield and looking after 2 children on her own, and I was here looking after 3 girls on my own. And when I had to go down, when it was going, she would say, well, when will I see you again? And, of course, in the end, I used to be singing it, when will I see you again? And that's been our favourite record ever since.
When will I see you again? When will we share precious moments? Will I have to wait forever? Will I have to suffer and cry the whole night? When will I see you again? When will our hearts beat together? Are we in love or just friends? Is this my beginning or is this the end? When will I see you again? When will I see you again? When will I see you again? Are we in love or just friends? Is this my beginning or is this the end? When will I see you again? When will I see you again? Sweet, sweet lover, when will I see you again? Come on, when will I see you again?
And there it's time for us to leave Huddersfield in West Yorkshire with its famous choral society, the textile story, that inventor extraordinary with his crazy inventions, the thriving rosette business, all those kites in Huddersfield's Kite Day, and finally their great runner, Derek Ibbotson. Next week, the Dino Way team will visit the seaside town of Bude and the north coast of Cornwall. I hope you join us there. Until then, goodbye. Brian Johnston has been down your way to Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. The producer from Bristol was Anthony Smith. In the programme, we heard the Huddersfield Choral Society, conducted by Owen Arwell Hughes, singing Praise, My Soul, the King of Heaven. Then the Colne Valley Male Voice Choir, conducted by George Stead, sang Love Could I Only, followed by Paul Simon and You Can Call Me Al. The Band of the Lifeguards, directed by Major Anthony Richards, played part of Mozart's musical Joke. The Chilean group Guamari played Florio de Lamas. And finally, we heard the 3 Degrees singing When Will I See You Again? Well, from Huddersfield, we'll turn our attention, before Poetry Please, to a couple of programmes with a London connection. The Tuesday feature this week takes us up a few ladders. Windows, Views from Outside, is by and about Doris Walker Bagg. She's a window cleaner, and 6 days a week, 66-year-old Doris is up her ladder on the windows of North London with bucket and trusted squeegee. 30 years of cleaning windows has given Doris some very clear views of all sorts of things, as you'll hear tomorrow evening at 8:30. An hour later, in Aspects of London, we hear what various writers felt about the place, among them James Boswell, Jane Austen and Anthony Trollope. Here's Charlotte Bronte at the Great Exhibition of 1851.
All the other sites give way to the Great Exhibition, into which thousands and tens of thousands continue to pour every day. I was in it again yesterday afternoon and saw the ex-royal family of France, the old Queen, the Duchess of Orleans and her 2 sons, pass down the transept. I almost wonder that Londoners don't tire a little of this vast Vanity Fair, and indeed a new toy has somewhat diverted the attention of the grandees lately, viz. a fancy ball given last night by the Queen.
You can hear what happened at the fancy ball and more Aspects of London tomorrow night at 9:30, here
on Radio 4. Now, Poetry Please, and here with more of your favourite poems is Kevin Crossley Holland.
Hello. When I was at the Frankfurt Book Fair last month, I heard about a new book. I think it was by the renowned Dr. Seuss, with the clever title, You're Only Old Once. The question of how to enjoy old age and how to remain at home with oneself is the subject of today's first poem, Old Woman by Elizabeth Jennings. Miss Jennings presents a calm and dignified dawn portrait of her subject and gently suggests some answers. Feel free to depend, she says. Be aware of your limitations. Take pleasure in continuities and, above all, learn to accept. This poem's been asked for by E. Fisher of Chigwell in Essex, and it's read now by Elizabeth Bell.
So much she caused she cannot now account for, as she stands watching day return, the cool walls of the house moving towards the sun. She puts some flowers in a vase and thinks, there is not much I can arrange in here and now, but flowers are suppliant as children never were. And love is now a flicker of memory. My body is my own entirely. When I lie at night, I gather nothing now into my arms, no child or man. And where I live is what remains when men and children go. Yet she owns more than residue of lives that she has marked and altered. See how she warns time from too much touching her possessions, by keeping flowers fed, by polishing her fine old silver. Gratefully she sees her own glance printed on grandchildren. Drawing the curtains back and opening windows, every morning now she feels her years grow less and less. Time puts no burden on her now she does not need to measure it. It is acceptance she arranges, and her own life she places in the vase.
Christopher Marlowe was an orchestrator of sound, to compare with Berlioz and Richard Strauss. For after all, the music of a poem is part of its meaning, and The Passionate Shepherd to His Love is one of his most celebrated poems. This seductive poem has been asked for by Mrs. E. Wakeham of Sheldon near Birmingham, Miss K. Stonestreet of Wells in Somerset, and Marian Hill of Kirkby Moorside near York, who writes that she was introduced to the poem by a very grim, harsh headmaster who nonetheless loved poetry and whose rendering of Melodious Birds Sing Madrigals was unforgettable.
Come, live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dales and fields, and all the craggy mountains yields. There we will sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses with 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come, live with me and be my love. The shepherd's swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love.
Geoffrey Collins read Christopher Marlowe's The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. After the publication of this poem, Sir Walter Raleigh, 10 years Marlowe's senior, wrote a reply on behalf of the shepherd's love, in which she declines the shepherd's offer on the grounds that youthful fancy doesn't last and that what's here today will be gone tomorrow. Raleigh's poem is exactly the same length as Marlowe's and in the same metre, and it picks up some of Marlowe's fine phrases. The nice idea of coupling these poems comes from Mrs. P. Blythe of Early near Reading.
If all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. Time drives the flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold, and Philomel becometh dumb. The rest complain of cares to come. The flowers do fade, and wanton fields to wayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue, a heart of gall, is fancy's spring, but sorrow's fall. Thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posies, soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. Thy belt of straw and ivy buds, thy coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can move to come to thee and be thy love. But could youth last and love still breed, had joys no date, nor age no need, then these delights my mind might move to live with thee and be thy love.
Answer to Marlowe by Sweet Sir Walter Raleigh. The last poem today is Tubal Cain by Charles Mackay, and it's been requested by two listeners, Mr. H.A. Reeve of Hounslow West and Mrs. I. Buick of Fatfield, haunt of the dreaded Lambton worm in Tyne and Wear. The fourth book of Genesis tells us that Tubal Cain, son of Zillah, was an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And in this poem, Mackay reveals the old smith's agony at man's warlike use of his inventions and his further efforts to direct man into the paths of peace.
Old Tubal Cain was a man of might in the days when earth was young. By the fierce red light of his furnace bright, the strokes of his hammer rung. And he lifted high his brawny hand on the iron glowing clear, till the sparks rushed out in scarlet showers as he fashioned the sword and the spear. And he sang, "Hurrah for my handiwork, hurrah for the spear and sword, hurrah for the hand that shall wield them well, for he shall be king and lord." To Tubal Cain came many a one, as he wrought by his roaring fire, and each one prayed for a strong steel blade as the crown of his desire. And he made them weapons sharp and strong, till they shouted loud for glee, and gave him gifts of pearls and gold, and spoils of the forest free. And they sang, "Hurrah for Tubal Cain, who hath given us strength anew. Hurrah for the smith, hurrah for the fire, and hurrah for the metal true." But a sudden change came o'er his heart ere the setting of the sun, and Tubal Cain was filled with pain for the evil he had done. He saw that men with rage and hate made war upon their kind, that the land was red with the blood they shed in their lust for carnage blind. And he said, "Alas, that ever I made, or that skill of mine should plan, the spear and the sword for men whose joy is to slay their fellow man." And for many a day old Tubal Cain sat brooding o'er his woe, and his hand forbore to smite the ore, and his furnace smouldered low. But he rose at last with a cheerful face, and a bright courageous eye, and bared his strong right arm for work, while the quick flames mounted high, and he sang, "Hurrah for my handiwork," and the red sparks lit the air. Not alone, for the blade was the bright steel made, and he fashioned the first ploughshare. And men taught wisdom from the past, in friendship joined their hands, hung the sword in the hall, the spear on the wall, and ploughed the willing lands, and sang, "Hurrah for Tubal Cain, our staunch good friend is he, and for the ploughshare and the plough to him our praise shall be. But while oppression lifts its head, or a tyrant would be lord, though we may thank him for the plough, we'll not forget the sword."
And that's all from Poetry Please today. There'll be more poems you've asked to hear at the same time next week, so do join Geoffrey Collins, Elizabeth Bell and me then if you can. Until then, goodbye.
In today's Poetry Please, we heard Old Woman by Elizabeth Jennings, Christopher Marlowe's The Passionate Shepherd and Sir Walter Raleigh's Answer to Marlowe, and finally Tubal Cain by Charles Mackay. Kevin Crossley-Holland presented the programme, which was produced in Bristol by Margaret Bradley. The address to send your requests to is Poetry Please, BBC Bristol, BS8 2LR. Now here's Jenny Murray to tell us about today's Woman's Hour.
Hello. In Woman's Hour today, we examine the government's restart scheme for people who've been out of work for a long time. The government claims already the unemployment figures are coming down as a result of the scheme, But does it provide real jobs? And what do the people called in for their compulsory restart interview think of the whole idea? We've been talking to claimants in Birmingham. What to do with toddlers when it's tipping down with rain? How about developing their musical talents? We'll be showing you how. We talked to Jane Diblin, who's just come back from the Marshall Islands. They're bang in the middle of the Pacific, and they're the site for the testing of President Reagan's Star Wars missiles. And if you're a bit of an antiques collector, we'll be finding out how you spot a fake with the help of John Bly from the Antiques Roadshow. That's all in Woman's Hour at 2:02. Join me then.
Presented by Jenny Murray. This is Radio 4.
BBC News at 12 o'clock. At the Old Bailey, the leader of a big heroin smuggling ring has been sent to prison for 28 years. Paul Dye was described by the judge as an unscrupulous man who thought he could evade arrest by staying in the background and was prepared to sacrifice anyone else. Clive Williamson, described as Dye's right-hand man, was jailed for 17 years. 4 other accused men were given prison sentences ranging from 7 to 12 years. The police officer leading the search for the remains of 2 missing children on Saddleworth Moor near Oldham has said there are no plans to take the Moor's murderer Ian Brady to the area. But Detective Chief Superintendent Peter Topping said he understood that Brady was in a fit state to be interviewed. That could happen within the next 24 hours. Arrangements had to be made with Brady's solicitor. The chairman of Barclays Bank, Sir Timothy Bevan, has been speaking about the bank's decision to end its investment in South Africa. He said the closing of accounts by customers in protest at apartheid was one factor, but not a major one. The principal reason was the bank's view of the future of the South African economy. In South Africa, 13 black workers are reported to have been killed in fighting at a gold mine about 100 miles southwest of Johannesburg. 20 others were injured. The violence occurred when some mine workers tried to force a bar to close down. In the Irish Republic, there's a threat of serious oil pollution from the freighter Kowloon Bridge, which has run aground on the southwest coast. The ship had been drifting for more than a day after her crew were taken off by helicopter. The authorities are putting emergency plans into operation to combat the pollution threat. A policeman has died after being injured when he and a youth fell more than 50 feet from the 5th floor of a block of flats at Stoke-on-Trent. He's been named as PC John Taylor, aged 26. The youth is in hospital with a broken leg and a suspected broken arm. BBC Radio News.
Radio 4. It's 2 minutes past 12.
Hello, this is Susan Ray. Welcome to the first of this week's You and Yours. The government's fight against AIDS moves on apace today with the publication of a booklet from the Department of Employment about AIDS in the workplace. The latest fashion accessory for children is a necklace which glows in the dark. But how safe is it? We return to that burning issue, oil central heating, and Stars and Gripes are here today. Linda Davidson from EastEnders tells us the saga of the builders who couldn't put her house together. This one will run and run. The government has made it plain that it feels the way to beat the spread of AIDS is through education. And there is a great deal of ignorance about the disease and the way in which it spreads. Scare stories abound. People are frightened of catching it from their workmates. Emergency service workers can feel nervous about the people they're treating. Today, the government takes its battle against AIDS a stage further. The Department of Employment has this morning published a booklet, AIDS and Employment. It spells out the risks associated with the virus and tells employers what they have to do now to educate their workforce, what the employer can and can't do if one of their staff is found to be an AIDS virus carrier. The Government Employment Minister, Kenneth Clarke, told Trevor Barnes what he hopes the booklet will achieve.
The message is that people can't catch AIDS from other employees in the ordinary course of events of the workplace. You usually catch AIDS by having sexual intercourse with someone who's infected or by sharing a needle if you're a drug abuser. Neither of that obviously arises from the ordinary course of events at work. It means if you find you're sharing an office with someone who's infected with the virus, or if you're sharing a loo, using the same loo as someone who's infected, if there's someone at the next bench who's got the virus, if you're eating in the canteen with people who are AIDS virus carriers, you are not at risk of catching AIDS. It follows from that that employers shouldn't discriminate against people who are carrying the virus. Even worse, they shouldn't just discriminate against homosexuals because they might get AIDS, and that someone who's an AIDS virus carrier remains fit to carry out their usual duties. And until they start showing symptoms, then of course the same problems arise with any other kind of disease about whether
the park than they are today, and then they used to vary between 60 and 80. And then in the First World War they used some of the land for agriculture, so we got the upper reaches of the park. And then the herd we considered was right between 30 and 40.
And how many today?
Today I think it's 51. The warden will give you the exact number today.
Well, I think it's our cue really to go out and see them if we may. And we're now heading towards the park itself. In, as you can hear, a Land Rover being driven by the Honourable Ian Bennett, Lady Tankerville's son. And we've been joined by the warden, Ian Lindsay, and by a zoologist from Cambridge University, Dr. Stephen Hall. And this is quite a rough track we've got here. It's not the sort of thing I would care to walk, I must confess. Where are we heading then, Maria?
Well, you can just see some cattle right up on the below that big wood on the skyline. So unless we find some more, we're going to have to go all the way up there.
That looks a fairly long journey.
It's a pretty rough ride, as you're about to discover.
They disperse around then quite happily within the parkland. Why should they do this?
They follow different growth rates of the grass, and at different times in the year, different grasses become attractive to them. And sometimes if they've eaten the lower grasses off, then they have to go further up into the park to find the grasses growing in the higher areas. Now, we are in fact in luck, because lower down there are, see, I can see 4 or 5 animals coming over to the left there.
Just beyond that fencing over there, yes.
That's right. That's probably about as close as it's safe to go.
Well, you've brought us right into the middle of, well, part of the herd anyway.
We've managed to drive close, which we can do, of course, in the Land Rover, because the smell of the Land Rover masks our human scent, which is offensive to the cattle.
If we got out of the vehicle, then they would be gone?
Well, I think they would either remove themselves or us, whichever was easiest.
So what happens when the general public comes round here? Do they have to come round in safari-type vehicles?
No, they are taken by the wild cattle warden, whose job it is to see that they're under no risk from these, and of course he's well trained into observing the cattle and how they behave and looking for danger signs if he were to get too close.
Mm. So it is a safari park situation?
Oh, yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
So it's safe to switch the engine off just for a little while, is it?
I think so, yes. They would soon, we would soon spot if the cattle didn't like it, because they'd A, all start to look at us, and B, they would probably